Good morning to everyone. My name is Van Wood. I am Professor of Marketing here at Virginia Commonwealth University in our School of Business. My specialty is international business, and I am the director of our Center for International Business Advancement here. And it's been my pleasure today to bring a colleague from England, Mr. John Worthington, who is the CEO of a very unique and very, I think, cutting-edge company, IBT Online, which provides web localization and internationalization to companies that are interested in making having a real footprint in the international business arena. We can put up a slide that'll give you more of the background. But John, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company?
IBT Online. IBT Online has been in business since 2002. We help companies go global. We have a program, it's called the Online Global Program. It's all about website localization, and that means getting websites for markets, different markets. So if for the American market, you'd have an American website, for the Chinese market, a Chinese website, for the Germans, a German website. So we're all about having localized content for localized users, and then when you've got those websites, you've got to market to them. So we're all about search engine optimization, social media, content, and reporting. So in a nutshell, we help companies grow their sales, grow their brands, and grow their businesses in these international markets. And for us, the platform to do so is the web, because the web has changed everything. Now, small companies can use the web to leverage and get into markets they just couldn't do 10, 15 years ago when the web didn't have the clout that it has today. So it's that online piece, and IBT Online uses the online piece to help businesses grow themselves.
And you've been around since, I believe, the 2002 is when
Yeah, I mean, so we're kind of at the beginning. A lot of people, it was a different world back then that you and I probably remember well, and a lot has changed. Some of the players and actors, deep influences today, didn't even exist back then. But it was pretty obvious that the web was a game changer and would enable companies to get to markets that they couldn't before. Once upon a time, you had to get on a boat with a suitcase and travel across. Today, you can do it online, literally.
Right. I remember thinking that actually, I remember the days when the way of communicating was you get a big long quill, dip it in some ink, and write something. But that's another story.
There you go.
So we have, I guess, one of the first themes I wanted to have you address was the theme of the world is indeed changing, and it's changing online. And we have some slides here that I thought maybe you might be able to explain.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a phenomenal number. We love Hootsuite as a source of information, so I do encourage you, if you're looking around, to research this further. Hootsuite's digital information from Jan 2018. It's phenomenal. The world population, as they note down here, is 7.5 billion. But the internet users is over 4 billion, and the active social media users, 3 billion. The unique mobile users is 5 billion. So these are just billions. I mean, it's big numbers, and they're growing so fast. If we'd have looked at these numbers 5 or 10 years ago, quantumly different. By taking these numbers and understanding the implications for your business and what you can do with these internationally, it enables you to open up and whole new opportunities and have a paradigm shift of your route to go to market internationally. It's just extraordinary.
Well, I like to point out too that a lot of Americans are still under the impression that the markets are primarily here in our country, and why we are a rich nation and we have a significant growth and as a GDP we should be proud of. The reality is that 95% of the population lives outside of our country. Absolutely. And something like 75 or 80% of the world's productivity in the coming years will lie outside too. So that's I think a couple of numbers that will be significant. Yeah. Talk a bit about digital growth and what that really means.
Yeah, so this slide was all about the pipelines that exist, and it's amazing the infrastructure that has been built and is being built. More and more companies are investing in these pipelines connecting. You can see from the traffic flow here, US, Europe digital traffic flow is the largest single traffic in the world, and then you can see what goes on from North America to South America and across the Pacific. I mean, sitting here in Virginia, I believe it's Amazon itself has put in some direct pipelines between Spain and Virginia. So, that's a concrete example of what companies are doing and why they're doing it. It's digital traffic flow, and those infrastructure pieces are all being built and extended. And the growth rate of what they're doing kind of tells the story when companies like Cisco Systems are out there and they're looking at the future of where traffic is flowing and they're building the infrastructure. And all we're saying as a company is know that, think about it, use it.
Excellent, excellent. And then you have some interesting things to talk about in terms of the small to medium-sized enterprises, which really are the ones that we all know that around the world most new employment is coming from small to medium enterprises. It's as high as 45% of the new job creation is from small to medium enterprises in America. But the digital literate SMEs is, I think, a topic we want to mention.
Yeah, and we love SMEs. I mean, as a company, IBT Online, we're all about SMEs and helping SMEs. And what the digital world has done has opened up a whole new opportunity for SMEs. And in fact, the SMEs are the great winners of what's happening now. Once upon a time, international trade, international business was kind of dominated by the Coca-Colas and the big enterprises that we all know about. Today, increasingly, if you look at the US exports, the drivers behind US exports and exports around the world from all of the other countries, it's the SMEs. These guys are growing fastest, and these guys are growing because guess what? Most of them have got on board the digital opportunities very, very quickly. And there's a direct correlation between SME growth. Those SMEs that have understood the digital world, who have grasped the digital world internationally, they're growing really fast.
Well, I think that's a topic we could explore further. There are some, obviously, in our audience here, and the people that be viewing this video, there are those who are experts and those who really are perhaps a bit novice in it. Why don't you say a few words about how the search engines work?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to talk a lot about Google. Can't ignore Google. There you go. But it's just the understanding of Google. Google is, of course, a very, very localized service. Google, in all of the countries that they're in, 192 country region specific search engines. So when you're talking about Google, you want to talk about different Googles. Google in every single country is different. They take their algorithms and they're adapted for each market. So take the market of Germany, for example. It's google.de for Germany. And the algorithm is all prepared for the German searcher. So the German, 99.99% of the searches are in German. And the algorithms there are all to prioritize local user information for the German market. So searching in Germany or searching in Italy or searching in Australia is very different compared to searching in, shall we say, the United States. And we have fun, or some of my colleagues who are searching for red shoes, so they were all looking for red shoes and by different searches. The results, country by country on Google, different everywhere.
Right. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that red shoe, because you do have a lovely slide there. I'll just put it up briefly.
Well,
it's a bit busy, but I think it gives you the idea.
There you go, exactly. And I can say, actually, it wasn't me searching for the red shoes, but I was told that this was an important search example. But we like it because it really illustrates the case that search engines, Google search engines in different countries operate very differently, give different results.
So the idea is to optimize for those individuals who are visitors to your specific web page and websites. Yeah. Is that true?
And I mean, that really is it. So web savvy companies and clients, companies that come to us, what they want to do is to be in their target markets, serving their target markets. And so this whole world of search, we understand the search terms in the American market, but then you understand the search terms in the Japanese market or the Chinese market or the UK or Mexican market. And the search terms are all going to be different. You do the keyword research, the long tail, short tail keywords, and you make sure that your website is localized so that people in these markets, when they're searching, boom, they can find you. And then they can engage with you because it's a local language. And we know that if you're a native, shall we say, Spanish speaker, what you really want to deal with and read is Spanish. And if you're a native German, that's what you want as well. You don't want to be dragged always into an English language site. Otherwise, you go away.
Oh, you go away. Absolutely. I totally agree. That's a great overview of how the world is changing and why we need to be aware of what's going on, particularly with these amazing tools that we have on the web. But the second topic I'd really think would be important is the idea of social media marketing. And you entitle it "Let's Get Social."
Let's get social. Because I do encourage you all, business people, get social. The world today has just changed so much, and social is now a fundamental piece of international business. Using the social media channels that exist really will enable you to achieve objectives in terms of your international sales and brand and business development that didn't exist recently. And obviously the big platforms are multinational. We've got some nice examples here, but I do encourage you to think increasingly about social media. Today it's important, and tomorrow it is fundamental to business.
Why don't we, you got I think a very interesting slide here. Why don't we demonstrate and talk a bit about how this is changing, the routes to export growth, because that's really what this is about using these new tools on the web and the internet to grow your export sales.
Yeah, so if we just look at it and just say, yesterday it was a very simple world in many respects. You would sort of have a company at the center of it all, and they were diffusing messages in a very, shall we say, structured way, in a structured environment. And they could control that messaging and who they were going out to and what routes and platforms they were using. Today, the slide on the right, as I'm looking at it, is, I guess it shows where we are today. It's merry confusion. I mean, look at that. It's a complete mess. Information flows in all directions, and nobody's really got a grip of it. And if there's one lesson, is that what you need to do is be out there and be in multiple platforms and enable the information flows to be with those flows on multiple platforms in multiple ways. So in today's online world, you can bet that those people who want to find information about you, they're all searching. They're searching on different platforms.
Excellent. And one of the things I really liked about this slide was that, and it ties right into my discipline of marketing, is that in the old days we put the company in the center, and now nowadays in the modern world you put the customer in the center.
Totally.
And the customer's been empowered because of that.
There you go.
We also have a very clever world map of social networks. Perhaps you'd like to comment on it.
Yes, I mean, it is just very interesting, and this is evolving, but if you look at the social networks of the world, and if you look at the space of Facebook, Facebook is just, shall we say, a wonderful example. They claim to have, about 2.1 billion users to date. So if you look at the United States, how many would they have? 250 million users perhaps here, which means that they've got about 1.7, 1.8 billion users outside the US. And you can see where they are. And you can use today's opportunities in terms of Facebook to get out there and communicate with those. If it's not Facebook, there are other platforms. The point is just understand your markets and understand which platforms are important and use that in terms of content and then content deployment, because today online everybody is social.
You know, one of the other platforms that I think a lot of people maybe take for granted, or they assume that it's pretty much one that you use if you're looking to get a job or find somebody you want to employ. But it's much more than that, and it's called LinkedIn. Perhaps you'd I'd like to make a comment on it.
Yeah, LinkedIn, I think there were certain times where people were kind of losing faith in LinkedIn. LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft, and some people question whether they're going to kill it, what are they going to do with it. It's absolutely clear now. Facebook, they're investing a lot of money in it. Facebook has just got video on it now, and it's kind of awesome the way that they're deploying video on LinkedIn, pardon me. LinkedIn has evolved phenomenally. They've got over 500 million LinkedIn users, and it really is a business tool. They've just used video now and permitted people to put video on it as a communication tool. In business terms, research, a lot of people are doing their due diligence in LinkedIn individuals and LinkedIn companies. So we love it, and we consider it one of the most important tools for businesses in the US, but businesses internationally.
And one of the things I wanted to have my audience also realize here is that you have a great example, and you're actually encouraging them to join this particular site on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so groups are very important in LinkedIn. We do encourage you to look at the groups that are relevant to your business. LinkedIn has many, many thousands of very business-focused groups. We have our own group. It's called Export-US Exporters Go Global. We encourage you to come and have a look at it and join it. Every business and every industry has a series of groups. You can get in these and then have an influence there. You can have a voice. You can find like-minded people discussing like-minded subjects. And in today's online business world, LinkedIn groups are a great way to learn.
Those are two great examples of what we have here that have come out of the U.S. markets. Tell us a bit about some of the markets, some of the tools that are available overseas. WeChat is one that perhaps they've heard.
Yes, awesome. So I signed up to WeChat a couple of years ago when some friends of mine in China were saying to me that had I even heard of it, and I hadn't at that stage. WeChat today is available in 20 languages. It has to be noted that WeChat in China, WeChat outside China are two very, very different things. In China, they really do dominate with 938 million monthly active users. Now that's a big number, and they're on the road now internationally. Within China, they are considered the app that brings all apps together because you can do so much on it. I do encourage you, go and check out WeChat and then check out WeChat's functionality in terms of what they offer in China and outside China. It's a glimpse of what the future might be if WeChat has its way internationally.
Well, I'm certainly a strong believer in that these type of platforms are going to be the future. It's anybody who's been following China and what they've been doing over the last 40 years, but in particular over the last 20, it is truly phenomenal. There's a great slide here I really particularly enjoyed. Maybe you could comment on the social media penetration by region of the world.
Well, there you go. If anybody is under any illusion that social media isn't everywhere in the world, there you go. Check it out. And you can look at it from a business perspective again. Say to yourself, okay, what are you interested? Are you interested in the Caribbean? Are you interested in South America or Africa or Europe? Here you get an overview. What's nice about that, you can dive behind that again and find out what actual platforms you need. But it is just a way to say, be aware that social media is a global thing.
Fantastic. Great overview. Let's move to the last topic I wanted to cover today, and that's the idea of website localization. And we talk about globalization, which is the idea that you need to be aware of this phenomenal force, as I like to call it, called globalization. It is the force that superseded the superstory that preceded it. That was the the Soviet Union versus the United States, the centrally planned economies versus the free market economies, etc. In 1989, as you well know, coming from England, the Berlin Wall fell down. All of that superstory went away and globalization took over, and has been a phenomenon for the last 28 years or so. But it didn't discourage or didn't nullify the idea that while you need to be aware of globalization and the opening of markets and creation of a phenomenal wealth over these last 30 years or so, you need to be fully aware of the idea of localization. So let's talk about website localization and the international online marketing.
Absolutely. Just backtracking though to the Berlin Wall, I was living in Brussels at the time, and with some Belgian friends, we got in a Volkswagen. We drove to Berlin, and we were there at the time. I have to say, it was pretty awesome.
I can imagine.
Never forget that.
Historical moment.
There you go. Website localization, yes. So website localization, really just the fundamental principle behind it is to treat the markets that you want to go to and do business with the respect that they deserve, that they merit. If you turn it around the flip side, if we were looking at, shall we say, a German company that was coming to the American market, we'd probably say to them one of the first things that they should do is have an American website, because asking American citizens to get on and find and navigate themselves around a German website might be something of a challenge. So website localization is the principle of LUX. So it's local user experience. We often talk about user experience. So add the word L at the beginning, local. And if you have a local user experience, which is a good one for your Chinese clients, for your Japanese clients, for your German clients, for your Mexican clients, the chances are you're going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, I have you have another slide here, I think, kind of points out why we want to do this.
Indeed, if there's any doubt, the US Commercial Services come back with this slide, and what they're saying is that 70% of the world's purchasing power is outside the US, and 85% of the world's economic growth, as you were saying earlier, is outside the US. So the phenomenal opportunities outside the US, take advantage of them, because today's online world permits you to have that online presence and wrap around the social media and SEO experience and be successful internationally.
Well, some people would say, well, that's all well and good, and But why do I have to? Why do I have to change? You know, why don't they come to me and be like me? Aren't consumers really enamored with the United States and what we do here in America? Well, you have some figures here that I think dispute that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think America historically has always punched under its relative weight, given its economy in terms of exports, compared to an economy, if you look at, shall we say, the Germans. The Germans, for us, are always the case study in how to do international business, and they're the first to get on board and do their sales and marketing very, very well with international websites. If we look at the German exporters. If we look at the reasoning behind it, we know in today's online world, 95% of multilingual consumers who speak the major languages such as English, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French and German will only buy online when it's a website in their language. Well, that says, you know, something very, very important. If you want people to buy from you, get out there and make that easy for them to do so. It's that local user experience. So if you want to be successful in these markets, in the major languages, you have to address those audiences in the way they want to be addressed. Otherwise, they'll go elsewhere.
Well, absolutely, well put. And then, you know, while your company really specializes in helping companies do this, I think that we have the proverbial checklist, but I think it's important to see it if you're thinking about moving forward with localizing your website and your online presence around the world. Some specific things that you might consider, and your company focuses on these.
So indeed, there's something which is called best practice in website localization, and at IBT Online, that's certainly what we practice and what we implement. You know, we do meet companies that are using things like Google Translate. Google Translate is awesome. The recent the AI around it now is wonderful. It has absolutely useful applications, but in terms of website localization, Google Translate is not the product. There's a checklist here, from domain names to, of course, design adaptation to language, etc., which is just one part of it, to hosting. There's a complete checklist of what is called best practice to make sure that your website is fully localized. We sometimes have companies say to us, oh, we translated and we have our, shall we say, Japanese website, but we're amazed that nobody comes to it. Well, they haven't understood the hosting piece, they haven't understood the SEO piece, they haven't understood and really walked this process. So there's a level of, shall we say, misunderstanding as to what technically localization is. So that's the way to do it.
Excellent. Well, let's wrap up here with a quick statement about, because that's the next aspect. If you're intrigued by all of this, and I think you should be, what is the next step? Well, obviously you need to get an expert involved. You need to have someone like IBT Online or others, but the international online marketing process I think is nicely summed up by your slide here with those 4 aspects.
Yeah, so going back and looking at the role of search engines that we talked about earlier. Search engine optimization, it needs to be understood, and when it's understood, then it needs to be implemented. Secondly, it's all about social media. So again, it is understanding which platforms are relevant to your target audiences and being able to get the content and deploy the content effectively. And that is about content management, editing and support, which is the 3rd piece. And of course, doing any of this without the report and accompanying analytics, which tells you is really your roadmap to what is happening. Because in today's online world, the information feedback that we can get is phenomenal. So we can really, at the end of it, we have something called a data dashboard. So market by market, we can bring in the information that really tells a company how they're doing online, their business, market by market.
Well, that's a nice overview. It's I think a motivation for companies who are haven't considered this to certainly move forward with it, and other companies who are engaged to maybe consider to what degree are we really touching all the points that really will make us successful in the international arena, particularly the online arena, which is, in terms of a marketing tool, is absolutely critical. So. For all of you that have been reviewing this, I personally thank you for joining us today, and I'd like to thank John Worthington, CEO of IBT Online, for taking the time to come all the way from England to sit with us for a moment for a bit of time here and share with us some of his thoughts. If you have any questions, you certainly can get his information. We'll put it up where his web location is and his email address. John, thank you so much for coming in today.
And my thanks to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure.